Hello and welcome everybody to The Loop, episode number 9, presented by Starin and Midwich Group. I am your host, Joe Dunbar, here stateside, and you know who's with me, as always, my good friend Louis the Lion from the other side of the pond. Louis, I don't even want to ask how you're doing. I know you're doing well, man, but go ahead. Go ahead.
So we're going to be a few weeks behind, right, when this comes out, but Joe is a Packers fan.
Yep.
I'm a Lions fan, and I don't really get this opportunity, do I, Joe?
Not too often, I suppose, huh?
The Lions are absolutely on fire, and I'm obviously over the moon about that. And I feel like we came to your stadium and we schooled you on how things should be done. So I thought I'd make a little bit of an impact on our show after the game.
I will say, man, the blue looks great on you. So it's a good color. I really do think you should keep rocking that. It is what it is this season. The Packers, I can't remember, like 7-3 at this point, or something like that. But it's a tough division in the NFC North because the Lions are roaring. And, you know, the Vikings look good too, and y'all deserve it. So I won't waste a bunch of my tears here on this episode about it, but I'm happy for you guys. Enjoy it, and like I said, keep rocking the blue because it looks good on you, my friend. We're getting back in. We're kind of, I don't want to say backtracking, but circling back around maybe a little bit to the digital signage and the content creation kind of conversation that we've had before. Louis, I'd love to hear a little bit of your stance. Before I ask you about it, I'll just kind of share my experience with systems integrators and talking about digital signage projects. One of the kind of obstacles that I usually have to overcome immediately is like they have an opportunity for digital signage and they immediately start talking the questions about hardware and how can we pull this off. And, you know, in my experience, it kind of usually needs to go the other direction. We talk a lot about the desired result and then working backwards. And that also applies here, is usually kind of the best way to go about it. We're going to have a guest on in just a few minutes to kind of give us some insight and that sort of thing. But I'm curious what you run into. Is it a similar sort of thing? Or are they starting with content? Are they learning, the systems integrators learning more that this is the place to start and work backwards? Or what's your experience like?
So we tend to find when people bring us projects and it's digital signage, for me personally anyway, I'm not speaking for the whole of everyone here, but when I get projects come across my desk, it is like you've just said, it's hardware first for some reason. And I take people a lot on journeys, especially when I'm showing around our demo centers of let's forget the hardware for a minute. What are you trying to achieve here? Because digital signage can be anything, right? It can be something as simple as a menu. It could be something like a complete, like full immersive type experience where you're selling a product or you're taking people on a story to sell your brand, right? It can be loads of different things. And I'm with you. I get it all the time. People will come to me and say, we've got a signage project that we're looking at the moment. What screens do I need? And I'm like, oh, wow, it might not be a screen. It might be an LED wall. And then when we're looking at players, what kind of players are you going to be looking at? What kind of like content management systems are you going to be looking at? All of those areas, I feel like let's forget for the minute. Let's go back to the story, right? What's the story? What is your end user trying to achieve here? And then maybe that will dictate the journey we kind of take you on when it comes to the management systems. Then definitely with the players and the screen layouts and things like that.
That's a great point. And you mentioned the management system. I know CMS is a term that's thrown a lot around in digital signage. We're talking about content management systems or content management solutions. And that's a big piece of the puzzle. You know, we work a lot, not officially on our line card. I'm talking about a lot of partnerships today that aren't officially on our line card, but go to show how deep we are in the industry and why these types of relationships are important. When it comes to CMS solutions, we've got a couple of things, and Signage Live is a company that we work with a lot and refer people to a lot, just because it's such a robust offering and makes content management so easy. So, you know, for sure, if you're not familiar with CMS solutions and want to kind of dip your toes in the water, it's a great place to start. Hit us up if you need more info. We can plug you in with that team for sure. The signage players too, like everybody immediately kind of goes to, okay, digital signage players, which isn't always the case. LG has CMS options and built into their players or built into their displays as well. So like this is something we deal with a lot. And to your point, working backwards from what is, you know, my buddy Jake over at Render Impact, who we're going to talk to in a minute, Jake talks a lot about what is the intent of the content. And that is a kind of a phrase that sticks in my head a lot. What do you want to achieve? What are you trying to get across? Is it information? Is it a story, like you said? Is it just art? Is it just something to improve the ambiance and make it look good? So that's something I talked to my buddy Jake over at Render Impact, Jake Berg. They're a content creation company. Louis, I don't know if you've heard of these guys, but they do a lot of really cool like 3D, effect kind of content creation, all the way down to the standard stuff. A lot of signs that people have seen in, Times Square, New York City, and casinos all over the world and things like that. These guys work on. So I had a short interview with Jake the other day, just kind of asked him about their experience with system integrators. So let's take a jump into that and have a listen what Jake has to say. I guess really what we want to know is like any insight, what kind of questions you could give integrators that they should be asking their customers when it comes related to like content creation for their customers.
That's a great question, Joe. Just because as the growth of the LED industry is gone and where integrators now need content to be part of that kind of initial package that a client's looking for these days. I mean, content used to be, hey, we wanted a video wall and we got a video wall, and then we figured out what we were going to do with it. And there's kind of been a slow shift in the market recently where content is starting to drive the conversation. And so for integrators to have that content tool as part of their kind of toolbox, I would say, it just helps them present themselves as a better educated person to their potential client. And that way they're thinking of overall what the client is trying to achieve by installing the video wall. And the integrator is the person right in the middle of all of that. They're the ones talking to the LED company. They're figuring out what that media player is and all of that. And when content's part of that discussion right off the bat, it lets the client know that they're going to the value of what they're really investing in. And all that kind of goes into what the overall theme of the intent of what they're doing. Why are we putting in this video wall? And content is the reason they're putting in that video wall, because they need to show what's going on. So that's kind of where we really like integrators to start with, is kind of asking their clients, what is the intent of the content that's going to be playing on this screen? And most times that's going to boil down to art, or is it information? Or is it a combination of both? Are we showing off our logo in a fun way? Are we trying to transmit a message that's promoting a marketing or advertising theme? Or are we looking for somebody to say, wow, that just looks cool, and they're taking a picture of it, what we like to refer to as kind of those Instagrammable moments. And especially with the growth that you see these days of the 3D style content out there. And there's a lot of miseducation in that world out there. People still think it's the screen or the hardware or the software, where no, it is the content that provides those cool 3D effects that we're seeing out there these days. And a lot of people haven't seen that stuff in real life. And once they do it, I mean, it makes them stop in their tracks. And again, it gets back to the Instagrammable moment type thing where, hey, we might still be getting a message along that has a little bit of intent of our logo is in there or whatever it might be. People love to talk about the Salesforce waterfall, for instance. That's a great experience content wise. You walk into that lobby and you identify immediately what that is without Salesforce even putting their name on it. People just know that that's what that is. So you can get that intent out of the content with even going that art direction and not being purely informative information. You still have the use of informative information. I mean, that's what digital signage originally was. Big clients of ours would be casinos, for instance, and they're going to have those monthly promotions that they're trying to get the word out there about, almost like mini TV commercials that they're playing on their screens within the casino. And so they are trying to transmit a message. And so that's the intent of that content. We're trying to get a word out to the customers or clients about something that we're offering. And there's that whole use of the intent of the content as well. So it's really boiling down to why are we putting in these screens and what's the purpose of it? I mean, you don't really want to get into the ROI side of things because people, I mean, that's all statistics and people can go so many different directions with that. But knowing what someone's trying to achieve and the purpose behind what they're doing, that's got to be question number one right off the bat. It shouldn't be the old adage of I'm getting a video wall because everybody else has a video wall. There should be a reason for doing what you're doing.
That's a great call out, Jake. You mentioned casinos and them kind of being a good customer for you guys. I know we've talked about some projects you guys have done. Can you tell us anything about stuff you've been working on lately? Some cool projects that are notable in your catalog?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, always something new and fun going on here, but we recently got to work with Talking Stick Casino Resort out of Arizona. They put in a bunch of new, really nice large LED screens, some ribbon screens, new screens by their entrance out to their parking garage. Basically, a lot of customer touch points where there was a lot of eyeballs. And these were areas of the casino that they were bringing back to life. They were redoing their poker room. They're one of the bigger poker rooms out there in Arizona. And then they were redoing their showroom. And both areas, the intent was to bring in LED, but the content was fully going to be that art-driven content. Yes, there might be some subtle nods to gaming, or there might be subtle nods to other things with parts of their logo, for instance, and things like that, where it really let us play with that art side of the intent of the content, but still getting something that tied back to what the casino and where you were. For instance, one of the pieces we did featured, they're called the Salt River horses. There's wild horses that roam out in the Indian reservation there. And they wanted to kind of bring that outdoor experience inside. So you're in a poker room, players are playing for a long time. You need some ambient, fun content playing on these huge screens that you. We'll share some video that you'll get to see a little bit of what this is all about. But when people are sitting there playing for a long time, they don't want just promotional messaging thrown in their face the whole time. They want something that kind of brings up the experience that they're having there. So these saltwater horses we featured, we were able to take these 3 giant screens that they have and use a 3D effect we call 3D force perspective, where it kind of gives that new anamorphic look that everyone likes to talk about these days. But it's what it really boils down to is, instead of just playing in the X and Y planes that we're used to playing in, we're also playing in Z space. So we can add depth to a screen and make it look like we're looking into another world, as we like to talk about it sometimes. So with those saltwater horses, we were able to create an environment where no matter where you stood looking into these 3 large video walls, you were able to feel like you were out there in the desert and these wild horses were running around, and kind of matching that to the environment. Another fun play we did for that poker room was a piece called Card Sharks, where we recreated what you almost would feel like a Shark Tank aquarium across these 3 huge screens. And I mean, it's a huge loopable piece that you wouldn't even think to realize that it's you don't even notice that you're not seeing something over and over again. But at the same time, playing cards subtly fall through the scene, which are have the branding and logo of Talking Stick obviously involved there. So you get that art of the aquarium scene, but you also get that subtle nod to the casino and its logo and branding that goes along with it. I mean, they even had us in a waterfall thing where there's a medallion. It's part of their logo. It's part of what they do there with their Native American art. And we were able to take an image of that logo, create a 3D model of this little medallion, and extrude it in 3D, and then put it into a water scene where it was a beautiful waterfall cascading down these awesome screens. But having that interaction with that medallion, and again, that subtle nod to the logo, the branding element of what the overall piece was, but in an artful way. So again, understanding what the intent of what the client was trying to achieve was relaxing, ambient, fun, Instagrammable moment type wow factor content that wasn't too distracting, but at the same time, there was those subtle nods to the casino and their branding and attaching the piece to the casino in that way.
That's so cool, man. I love how it touched on all the pieces there, right? Like, it's about the intent of the content. So in this case, creating an experience, an environment, and an ambiance, like you talked about, is really kind of the goal. Still incorporating, the logos and everything, so you know where you're at, and not in a way that's gaudy or forced, but just kind of tactfully placed in there. Thanks, Jake, so much for being with us. I appreciate all the info and insight. Where can people find you if they want to continue this conversation and get more info about content creation?
Awesome. Appreciate you saying that. And thanks for having me on, of course, today, Joe. They can find me on LinkedIn real easily. They can find me via our website real easily. But just talking to all the integrators out there, if they have questions about content and how they can make that part of what they're selling and being able to provide that kind of more of a turnkey solution to their clients, just reach out. We're here to talk to everybody that's out there. We're not we like to say we're product agnostic. We work with everyone. We like to play nice. We're all playing in the same big sandbox with different toys. So reach out, let's talk, let's communicate, and we're here to educate and help however we can.
Jake Berg from Render Impact. Appreciate it, my friend. Thank you. So Louis, that was my good friend Jake Berg over at Render Impact. Again, just a shout out to Jake for joining us. We really appreciate his insight. Render Impact is a content creation firm here stateside. They do work all over the world. So renderimpact.com, you can Google them, find all the sizzle reels and that sort of stuff. Louis, Jake had some really interesting things to say. One of the things we always come away with and is like the core delivery or takeaway here in this message is content is king, right? We've talked about how if you got to work backwards from there, start there. And if you don't have that figured out, then the rest of it is a moot point. One of the things that Jake mentioned a lot that I liked was kind of the Instagrammable moments. And he talked about the experience and it's about branding and raising ambiance and that sort of thing. But also, he did mention early on in the interview about talking about systems integrators and them having content creation as something in their toolbox, so to speak. So a service that they can offer. And I think it's really important for a lot of systems integrators to know that that doesn't mean having content creators on staff, right? I think that means having partnerships with companies like Render Impact or other folks that are out there that can help provide these services. And as an integrator, you can work with them to either white glove the solution and sell it under your own quote and your own bill of materials. You can subcontract it, or it can just be a connection that you make with your end user. And I think that's just a really important takeaway for our systems integration partners is to understand that, like, if you're going to sell the hardware, again, the conversation needs to start with the content. And you're just going to box yourself out of the conversation if you just dump it into your end user's lap and say, let us know when you've got content figured out. You can't do that. So that's a great way to do that. But what did you take away, Louis, from Jake's words of wisdom?
Well, on that point as well, I think it's very keen to know that, especially when you're talking about digital signage and you're talking about a story and a journey of a partner and what they're trying to achieve. If you are an entity that don't understand like Jake's side of it from where the content is the most important thing, you could be not selling yourself as much as well, right? So if you're the individual that's working on a project and you don't know what Jake's doing behind the scenes, or you don't even know that you can work with those kind of companies, you won't know how to make that end user tell the story they want to tell through the technology that you might be supplying them. So yeah, 100%, I'm with Jake on that. I think it's very important that you have that tool in your arsenal. Like you said, you don't have to get in-house teams to be doing it for you. I don't think everyone needs to do that. Having the right partner for the right job is the way the whole channel works, right? So right. I think it's really key. A big thing for me as well that he was speaking about was the ROI piece. Now, in advertisement, this is a real hard thing to discuss, right? Because
yes,
whenever you're showcasing yourself in any kind of capacity, if you're doing it in like a television advert, if you're doing it at a sporting event, if you're doing some digital signage down the side of a road or outside of your shop, how can you genuinely track someone seeing that content to then coming in and making a purchase or just getting involved with your story, unless you actually ask that individual if they've done it? Now, one side of the fence on that is to say that, well, then if we can't quantify that on paper directly, why would we do it? But then I would challenge anyone to go look at Coca-Cola, right? They don't need to do adverts, but they do. They don't need to do digital signage, right? Because everyone knows who they are, but they still do. That brand awareness, that story, that not looking at the logo, but knowing the content from that brand to become part of our lives, right? And you adopt those things. Like, people are passionate about brands that they get involved with. All of that content is what fuels that fire. So even though you can't quantify on paper the ROI, it's still so important to be getting this content delivery right, because your brand could be the story that someone is buying into. And if you're not telling them the story to get them to buy into it, you're missing out on a huge potential of your development.
That's Coca-Cola is such a great example for that, and I'll tell you why. This is a little regional, so I'm going to break it down for you. But in different parts of the United States, a soda is referred to as many things. Where I'm from, it's called a pop. In other places, it's a cola, whatever. There are places in the United States where you go and you say, "I'll have a Coke," and they'll say, "What kind?" Because Coke is synonymous with soda. And that, I think, speaks to like the branding and the recognition and understanding that this isn't about tying a set of eyes to a specific sale, right? This is about ingraining the brand and whatever experience that brings into our daily lives. So I think that's a really great call out about like improving the experience, lifting the brand up and integrating it more into our lives. That's a really great example. And then kind of swinging to the other side of it is, what is the intent of the content, is the question we started with. And that's the intent of the content for those big brands, right? In other places, the intent of the content is to communicate specific information. It could be a menu, it could be a travel schedule, it could be safety information when you talk about emergency notification systems, which fall into digital signage sometimes. And that information is going to be more specific, more granular. And sometimes with the ROI conversation, you can tie that together a little more. Well, we added this thing to the menu, we made it bigger and bolder. And since we've done that, we've seen sales increase. So we can say that there's some correlation there. Maybe not causation, but definitely some correlation. So this, Louis, fun conversation. I could talk about digital signage all day, and we have some other partners out there. So I just want to say thanks to Jake at Render Impact and all the partners that we work with. If you're looking for help with digital signage anywhere in the world, you can just start with myself or Louis, and we'll be happy to connect you with the folks that we know inside the channel. Louis, wrapping this up, I want to get to some updates. I really only want to reiterate for our folks listening in the audience, no firmware updates for me or hardware, anything. The only thing I wanted to mention is it is the end of the year, which is just indicative of the fact that things are on sale. I mean, across the board, including here with the Midwich group and things like that. So if you're looking for some deals to be made, please reach out to your salesperson and let them know. And there's a good chance, we've got some stuff to help them out with. And that's really all I have for the updates on my end, Louis. I know we've got some more exciting episodes coming up and more guests. What can you share with us for some updates?
We do indeed, mate. And I'll be honest with you, I can't believe how quickly this year's gone by. It feels like it was yesterday. We were not chilling by the pool, getting ready for Infocom. This year has absolutely flown by, and equal like the end of the year's coming. So updates and things like that are usually scarce this point of the year because everyone's trying to wrap up the year, right? But big thing I want to look at and talk about, and I want to get loads of people's opinions on this too, because love it or hate it, 360-degree cameras seem to drop their way into my inbox. I'm going to say they slide into my DMs every day.
As the kids say. As the kids say.
Exactly. Yeah, right. So Yealink, I've seen on their website, they've got the M Tower that they've just popped on there. I've not played with it. Don't know anything about it, but Yealink have got now, 2 offerings in that kind of 360-degree space.
Yep.
Neat have done a great job with their center, tying into their other products. I know Logi, they've got their own one, your side of the pond as well, right?
The site, yep. I literally have 2 emails in my inbox from the time we started this recording asking about the site. So they're sliding into the DMs everywhere, man.
So I'm interested to see how that's going to go down. Like I say, love it or hate it, 360-degree cameras, they're sliding their way in, and it's cool to see more people are getting into that realm. More people getting in means more development. It means it's going to go further, right? So it's always cool to see. Other updates from me, though, like I said as well, end of the year's coming. So everyone's focusing on closing up those projects and making sure partners are sorted for their 2025 kickoffs and all of their stuff's ready for the next year.
I appreciate it, man. I'm excited to see and talk more about kind of get back into the UC conversation. I appreciate Jake being on today. Louis, as always, my friend, it was a great time, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.
Absolute pleasure, buddy. Catch you in a couple of weeks.